Hi everyone, welcome to this new podcast series where we're going to be talking about trans experiences. And I'm also going to be interviewing a lot of trans people along the way and hearing their stories about coming out and little tips and tricks as well along the way. So this is my partner. Her name's Charlotte. She's Irish. Why don't you
Charlotte.
introduce yourself and tell us about how your trans experience began and what your life was like growing up?
So I'm Charlotte, as she calls me Lottie. Nobody else calls me that. So yeah, I'm 34 now. Yeah,
She's very old.
I'm not that old. She's almost 30, so it's okay. Um, yeah, like I kind of figured out that I was different around 4. Now that was 1994, so there was no internet. There was no nothing like that. Just didn't even exist in the media.
So that's something that I do notice a lot of time. A lot of the time is like online and the media seem to just make out like it's something that springs upon you, like it's never been there. And in some cases that might be, but in both mine and Charlotte's and so many other trans people that we know, they've had a very different experience where as far back as they remember, their life, like they felt very different and haven't fitted in as their gender assigned at birth.
Yeah, for sure. Like, as far back as I can remember, that's not true. Like, one of my earliest memories is being in a pram at Dublin Zoo, randomly. But, like, my second earliest memory would be that I definitely felt different. And it wasn't until I was about 14 that I kind of had access to the internet and was able to look it up and figure out exactly what it was.
So it's the internet that made you trans.
Oh yeah, definitely the internet.
No, the internet, like a lot of you do get a lot of people online and they're talking about like how it's just a lot of influence which is making people feel this way. But even for me growing up, I was constantly like I heard the name tomboy thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
So I was always like, oh, maybe there's such thing as like a tom girl because I don't feel like a boy.
I used to say that all the time. I was like, I'm a tom girl. I'm just a bit girly.
Yeah. And then growing up, I was called gay a lot in school, which is quite funny because I'm gay, but I'm just not gay in the way that they thought. um,
Same.
but this always confused me because I was always like, I like girls. The girls are like the gender I'm most attracted to. But then like, I was like, but there's something else there. Like, I feel very feminine in everything that I do. I don't exactly feel masculine.
No, even when I'm working on cars or bikes, I don't feel masculine doing it. I struggle to undo bolts these days, so...
Yeah, like, I think as well, there is very much a stereotype for a trans person. It's someone who's like built like a wardrobe and looks like a man with a wig on. It's not exactly the case. You get a lot of people who are like, oh, we can always tell, and that's such a common one, isn't it?
Oh, we can always tell, but yeah, on 2 different occasions now, I've been asked, am I her mother?
Yeah, which is a bit of a weird way to get a bit of euphoria, isn't it?
It's a bit euphoric. It's a bit of a slap in the face, and then they'll ID me for alcohol. I got refused for a bottle of Desperados the other day because I didn't have ID.
But I've also talked to a couple people in the past, like where I work bouncing about and stuff, doing courier work. And one of the other couriers started talking to me one day.
God.
And he was just talking, having general conversation. And I was like, oh yeah, I was pulled over by the police the other day because my reg plate was a little bit too small. So the police were kicking off about that, and he was like, oh yeah, they'll get you for anything these days. One of the big ones is all this woke nonsense and stuff about people transitioning and all this. And I was just sat there like, you have no idea, do you?
But we had it again, the two of us, when we were in, was it a Sainsbury's car park and some biker pulled
Yeah,
up?
so there was that other biker, wasn't there?
Yeah,
And
similar kind of thing where he was kind of going off on this a very similar rant.
And like he was going, oh, and this Biden fella and all this wokeness and all this.
That's
and
right, yeah.
that word gets thrown around so much. Like, what exactly is wokeness? Is wokeness just like people trying to change the world for the better? Because that's all it's coming across. It seems like you just got a problem and
Yeah, like my favourite has to be when they call you snowflake, but they got really, really offended about it. I was like, you're kind of like just calling yourself a snowflake at this point.
like literally they call us snowflakes, but they get offended a lot easier than anyone else in the trans community that I've ever met.
Half the time I don't
Like-
even care. Like they're like, oh, you're such a snowflake. It's like, no, I don't really care.
Yeah, like respect, like give some respect. Like you got to give that basic level of respect, haven't you, to everyone. But as soon as you start like getting triggered because I'm existing just the way I wanted to exist, then that's when we're gonna have problems. Like, it's so random.
Yeah, for sure. Like here's a really stupid example of it. I commented on a video once on TikTok, and the amount of people who were coming after me with hate because I have a trans flag in my username, and it's like I wasn't.
Yeah, like that's the really big thing though. Is so many people expect us to just be walking around with a trans flag everywhere, and they're like, I can spot a trans person a mile away.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, it was some video about some long forgotten gyrojet, and I just commented being like, oh yeah, it's called the gyrojet, not realizing that the name was in the video. But the amount of people who come along and be like trying to like dead name me with random names that they've picked out because my name's Charlotte, they'd be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, your dead name must be this.
I get that all the time, like people coming onto my like videos and stuff, and they're like, oh, it's Elliot.
Yeah, Elliot.
The name is
I'd say,
Elliot, and it's
yeah.
like, how do you think we pick our names? Because for me personally, I always had the names in my head, and whenever I played games and stuff, and I could select my character and do all that customization and stuff, my name in games was always Emily. And then I ended up dating a girl called Emily. And then, but then after breaking up with her, I was like, my name cannot be the same as my ex's. So I chose the next closest thing, which was Ellie.
Which
That's
is
how-
like one of the most common trans names to exist.
It turns out, yeah, I didn't know any of that before I actually transitioned.
But
But, like-
that's interesting. I never had a name picked out.
No.
It never really occurred to me, and that's why I actually struggled to pick a name when I transitioned.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably do struggle.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just easy. It was just a go-to because I've always had that in my head. So anyway, let's talk about estrogen and
Yeah.
how it affected us. So what was the first year on E like for you, and when did you start E?
I started E in 2016. Hang on, let me do some math in my head. Yeah, it was 2016.
So it was 2016. And what was the first sort of effects that you felt with E?
My breasts definitely got tender
Yeah.
pretty quick, and like there wasn't much growth in the first year, but there was little, we'll say, mosquito bites. But they were definitely more sensitive. I started kind of becoming a little bit more aware of my emotions. The full height of which didn't kick in for about 3 or 4 years, but there wasn't a huge difference in the first year, I have to say, for me.
For me, the biggest thing, like the first month, let's talk about the first month, because the first month is the thing that shocked me sort of the most. And that's how much estrogen changes your brain and the way you think and the way your emotions work. Because for me, I used to always struggle to feel things as strong, and I never really felt emotion as strong as when I started estrogen. As soon as I started estrogen, like, month one, it was definitely the waterworks. Like, once the waterworks started on E, they genuinely did not stop. Like,
Still haven't stopped.
the emotions are so strong now. Like when I cry like crazy, don't I?
For no
Like,
reason sometimes.
Yeah, literally, like
Not just sad things, happy things, anything.
I cry for every emotion, and it's so weird to like experience this after experiencing testosterone. Because testosterone, I don't know if it felt like this for you, but for me, testosterone was definitely like it just numbed me, and I definitely felt depressed a lot of the time. Maybe that was down to the fact that I was dysphoric as well. But also like it genuinely just numbed me, and I didn't feel much.
Yeah, I was mostly the same. Like, testosterone didn't really allow me to feel a whole lot of things. Yeah, I felt sad and
Yeah,
definitely wasn't the best growing up, but
but I'd like to hear this from any trans men's perspective as well, because I want to know if going from estrogen in your system to going to testosterone in your system, if that had a big of impact on how you feel and how your emotions work and stuff. And do you feel exactly the same way as you did before, or do you feel entirely different, like myself and Lottie does? That'll be really interesting to hear. So let us know in the comments if you how you feel. Are you okay?
I mean, are any of us okay?
No, I don't think so. So for me, like the fit from month one was definitely breast tenderness, and mentally I definitely felt a bit different. Like coming up to the 6 month mark, it was quite similar, and then it was obviously the body fat distribution, up to about a year, and then I started to notice it a bit more, and it started to come on a bit more. Coming up to from year 1 to year 2 for me, it was definitely about like the skin and how you feel, and
For sure. But the crazy thing is, like, I've seen pictures of you pre-transition, and I wouldn't even say yous are related.
this is absolutely crazy. So I'll put a picture in here,
Yeah.
and you guys can judge for yourselves like how far I've come on quite quickly.
Definitely. Like, I saw a picture of you in lockdown,
Yeah.
and I was like, who's this 40-year-old?
I didn't just look more rough, right? I genuinely like
You looked old.
I look so old, and I was like,
Almost haggard.
what I think it probably was the fact that I was so just exhausted, like mentally I was just so exhausted, and I was keeping this secret, and I had all this weight on my shoulders, and I was just hiding from the world, and even when it came down to my style and everything, like I had to just copy off what I seen and what I seen other people wear. And we need to talk about fashion as well, with like men's fashion compared to like being able to shop as a woman, because it is literally like that was the best thing about transitioning for me, is like how much more options we get for clothes.
That terrified me. I already had too many choices. Now I've got so many more choices.
Like clothing outlets, for example, like Primark and things like that.
She means pennies.
Pennies or Primark. Just places like that. Like the men's section is like a little dusty corner in the basement, and then you share it with kids as well.
Usually, yeah.
And
Or,
then-
or home. It's usually kids or home is where men shared with.
Yeah, and then like the women's section, we've got 5 floors
Yeah.
of things that we can like look at and shop for, and I love that so much. That was like the best little surprise
Yeah.
of transitioning for me. I always struggled with fashion because I didn't like the way men dressed, and I was like, how am I meant to feel good about myself if I don't like the way I dress, or like what I'm receiving and stuff like that. I'd receive presents for Christmas, and I'd be like, oh, a nice big massive jumper so I can hide my dysphoria in it.
Or more socks.
Or socks, yeah. But I do much prefer like the socks that I've got now. I've got like little cutesy socks. even sock shopping, for God's sakes.
I've got Sailor Moon socks on right now, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, I think mine. I usually wear like the Hello Kitty ones and stuff. I got recently. I love them. And then fluffy socks for the winter, and
Even before I transitioned, I like when I kind of came to terms with the fact that I was trans and I knew I was going to transition soon, I started wearing fluffy socks, and people were like, I see you wearing fluffy socks. I was like, yeah, they are warm.
There's so much cozier. But I used to go for like things like the fleecy leggings in Primark, which are remarkable.
They are fantastic.
I used to get them pre-transition, but that's about it, because they keep you so cozy. Any men who are on this podcast right now, get yourself to Pennies or Primark.
Especially if you ride a motorbike, they're great to wear on the motorbike trousers.
They're phenomenal. They're like so fluffy on the inside, and they keep you so toasty in the winter.
Yeah, so like for you, definitely, like there's been massive changes in the 2 years that you've had. If we compare my breast to her breast at this time,
should we compare now?
When I was about 2 years in, like I've even showed her pictures. Her breast growth is definitely more than mine. It was really weird. Like that's supposed to be within the first, I think, 5 years. They say.
Yeah, they say up to 6 years.
Up to 6 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, my jump in size happened in the last like couple of years. She was very happy that she proved me wrong recently. I was like, no, I'm a 36B. I got measured.
She definitely wasn't.
I'm a 36C. But it wasn't just the breast growth. If you look back at my older pictures throughout my transition, I thought I had made big changes over the years, and it wasn't until the last maybe 3 years at most that there's been major differences in my face and my body.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely took a lot longer for me.
Absolutely, I'd say the past couple of years have been the best for you.
Yeah.
It's so odd how late her transition just hit her like a brick wall. Yeah. It is literally so crazy. If you see her transition pictures, should we put some on?
Yeah, we'll put some in.
Okay, so here's Charlotte's before transition. Big ick.
It's not that bad.
And then
okay?
this is Charlotte now. This absolutely blows my mind, because it's meant to happen the first few years. Like most changes happen in the first few years.
Yeah, but
for you, absolutely, you just changed everything. It's like, crazy.
And I'm 8 years in, so that shows you like if you don't like your appearance at first, that doesn't mean you should jump into FFS or any other surgeries. It can take time. It took me forever, and I'm at a point now where I'm not so much dysphoric about my body, more I get this body dysmorphia maybe a bit. Whereas I don't see a masculine face anymore. I just don't see a particularly attractive face.
I would like to argue that he is.
Thank you.
So I think one thing that we need to talk about is the dreaded bathroom debate, if it even is one.
It's such a ridiculous debate. Like, bottom line, if a man wants to go into a women's bathroom for nefarious activities, he's going to do it regardless. And like,
exactly, like it's not like the security on the bathroom door at the bathroom door, like, oh, you must stop, you must provide your IDs and everything.
Like it's not like the airport; they don't have full body scanners. Like
exactly, drop your pants. Like surely that would be weirder.
And like that's only going to work for a certain amount of people. Like I've had surgery, so it's not even that obvious. The other part of this is you open yourself up to so much more. By forcing trans women into the men's bathroom and trans men into the women's bathroom, you are opening yourself up to men.
That's a whole big kind of worm.
Yeah, like men can go up and go, oh no, I'm a trans man, I was born a woman.
Yeah.
And like trans men are so much more harder to tell.
Yeah, like testosterone does like rarely takes hold of trans men.
Yeah.
Trans men. They are beautiful.
I'm right here.
No, but like we need to like trans men compared to biological men. Like it's not trans women you have to worry about. It's the trans men stealing your girl.
Yeah.
Like trans men are just such a beautiful creature.
And they know what it's like to be a woman. Like.
Exactly, they can relate with women big time.
like come that time of the month, they know how to handle it.
Exactly.
They
They're,
know what
they're
you
probably
need.
like, yeah, I've got tampons here. There you go, girl. Look after yourself. Trans men, they probably have no, like, biological men, I mean, probably have zero idea what to do in that situation, or a lot of them. I'm not gonna say all. I'm gonna say a lot of them would have no idea. It's like the whole space thing, isn't it? About the astronauts that went to space and they're like, how many tampons do you need?
But like I saw a hilarious TikTok where this woman sends her husband, I think, to the store to get pads with wings. So he brings back a box of pads and a whole load of chicken wings. And he couldn't figure it out until she points at it and she goes, the pads have wings. And he was like, oh no, they're little flaps.
I seen one once and he was like, what flavour do you want? Do you want orange flavour or lime flavour?
Like, yeah.
It's just so funny. But do you remember this whole thing with Dylan Mulvaney as well? Dylan Mulvaney was buying tampons to keep with her, just to keep in the bag in case another girl in the toilets goes, do you have a tampon?
Which happens a lot. Like, I've had that happen multiple times and I'm like, no, sorry, I don't have any on me.
Exactly.
I probably should have started carrying them. I still haven't, but...
Exactly, but it was such a big debate and it was like, she's doing it to help other women.
Yeah.
Like, we're not just trans women, we're women. Like, we're women first. Like, that's the big thing. And we got to look out for other women. And then, of course, where the bathroom debate is, there's usually the debate about these trans people in the Olympics. And it was a really big topic this year on, I can't remember what her name was, but she was a boxer, a cis female boxer who got mistaken for a trans woman. And it was all over the media and there's people kicking off and being like, how could you allow a man into the Olympics and all that?
It's not even that. Like, I give you one worse. I saw people sharing articles and being like, people with XY chromosomes shouldn't be up against people with XX chromosomes. It's like, where did this information come from?
Yeah.
Like, no test results were released. It could have just been testosterone, which can be from working out, can increase your testosterone.
This is one thing that shocks a lot of people as well, is that cis women have testosterone naturally in your body. In fact, like, trans women often have less testosterone than cis women.
Like myself, I have none anymore. Maybe trace amounts.
Neither of us have any.
Yeah.
Completely, like, I think did mine come back 0.00 or was it 0.
I can't remember what yours was.
I think my last blood test, it was 0.001 or something like that, which is like nothing. Like, that's eradicated. It is not in my body anymore.
And like, since surgery, like, I don't produce it, so, except I think a small amount of my pituitary gland, but
yeah. One thing this is one thing that shocked me as well with my transition was before transition, testosterone, it really does help your athletic performance. I used to be able to walk and run as far as I want and never get out of breath. Well, I get slightly out of breath, but not too bad. Now, however, my stamina is like non-existent, virtually non-existent. I struggle to go for runs now, and it's not just down to lack of fitness, it's just down to lack of stamina. And I think that just shows how much testosterone has an effect on the body.
Yeah, for sure.
Compared to estrogen. Like, I've lost muscle performance, I've lost stamina. Why would I want to join the Olympics with, like, I've lost all my biological advantage. And the fact that I've been through a puberty before I've been through this female puberty, that has nothing to do with it. Like,
no, absolutely not. Like, you know, I was never a very strong person. When I started my transition, I actually was dating a girl, and at the time I was slightly stronger than her. Within a year we were pretty evenly matched, and then towards the end she was stronger than I am. And like it's not like she worked out or anything. She went for runs and that was about it. But she was able to overpower me.
Like, I've had like arm wrestles and stuff with people, and I really, really struggle with arm wrestles these days.
And we haven't found anyone she can beat yet.
You don't have to out me like that. Come on.
Maybe your niece, you
I'm
might
hench.
beat your niece, but I think she'd have an advantage over you.
How old is she? Like 4, 5? 5?
5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really rough, honestly. I don't know where it comes from. If any medical experts in the comments know exactly why we lose so much muscle mass, let me know. But it's one thing that people definitely overlook is just how much muscle you lose, how much stamina you lose. And if you wanted to be an athlete and be trans, that must be so difficult, especially for if you're going from male to female.
Yeah, I can imagine, I used to be able to run quite a long distance before I transitioned, and you'd be lucky if I can run 5 minutes now.
Same. I get tired walking to the fridge to grab like a handful of cheese. Like it's really rough. So I hope you've all enjoyed this podcast. Is there any last little messages you want to say to the viewers before we wrap this up?
Yeah, just because your story isn't the same as ours, or like every trans person's story is going to be different, it doesn't make you any less valid. If you didn't feel like this from a young age, that doesn't change anything.
It's never too late to transition.
Never too late to transition. Be yourself and be happy.
Yeah. So we'll leave it on that. Make sure to subscribe as it helps the channel a lot, and make sure to like the video as well. Share it with your friends. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.